All right, welcome into Yard Prep here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports. We also got Louis Sung. You can follow him at Louis Sung on Twitter, and Michael Quirk at SJB Michael. We may be joined by Eric Wadicki at some point during the program. The Miami Dolphins play in a few hours as we're recording this. We're in the middle of the afternoon games. We're watching Brock Purdy beating Tom Brady right now. The 49ers up 14-0 on the Bucs. We'll talk about all the relevant results in the AFC today. That one's not particularly relevant to the Miami Dolphins. We'll talk about all of those as we go forward, of course, as we preview Dolphins Chargers. And we're going to give you our prize picks. So make sure you're following that code 5 FIVE. Get your initial deposit matched up to $100. This is free money. This is not the kind of situation where you got a bunch of rollovers. It's not illegal. It is legal in the state of Florida. It's not offshore money or anything like that. You can play 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players together. Go to prize picks. Use the code 5 FIVE, get your initial deposit matched up to $100. And at some point, we will give you our picks here during the show and try to put them up on the screen as well. All right, let's get to it. Dolphins Chargers. I think everybody, when the schedule came out, has been looking forward to this game. Maybe more so for a couple of players than the entire rosters. But now it has real roster significance. At this point of the season, standing significance. At this point of the season, and also has been flexed to an 8-20 game, which means everybody's going to be watching this. And this is going to be, for a lot of people, a referendum on a couple of things. One, the quarterback selections by the Chargers, and particularly by the Dolphins, going back to the year 2020. But also where these teams stand going into the possible postseason berths, because we saw today, the Bills won. So Miami's still in a position, sort of a chase position there. The Jets lost, which gives Miami a little bit of a cushion, but Cincinnati won, as Eric joins us. Cincinnati won, which, of course, they have the tiebreaker over the Dolphins, courtesy of the win in which Tua got banged up. So Miami needs a win tonight, Louis. Like, we can talk about everything else that's going on, but you still got the Bills on the schedule. Your own secondary has still been beat up this season. And obviously, you may not – it doesn't look like you're getting Byron Jones back at any point here. But, I mean, this is not just about Tua and Herbert tonight. Like, Miami needs an AFC win. They need to increase their cushion over the Jets and Patriots, and they need to hang with the Bengals to get up as high as they possibly can in the wildcard standings if that becomes where they fall.
Yeah, I mean, this game has a lot of situations going on for Miami, not the least of which, and this is something that I'm sure we're going to talk about, is the fact that this is kind of, when we say referendum game for Miami, yeah, it has a lot of playoff implications, that's for sure. AFC matchup, this is the game that really mattered. We were talking about how, and push comes to shove, beating San Francisco would have been nice, but does it really need to do much for the Dolphins? Not really. No, this game absolutely does. And not only that, this is the matchup that everybody was waiting for, right? The actual head-to-head, or I should say the second head-to-head, because they faced each other once already that I remember, Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert. Who is truly the superior quarterback and blah, blah, blah. This is going to all be decided. Not really, but that's what it feels like as usual. It's always the case of, is Tua going to be able to rise to the occasion and beat his greatest draft rival? Because for all the success that Joe Burrow has had, the guy that he keeps getting compared to is the guy that the Dolphins picked ahead of him. So it's Tua versus Herbert, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be about what these teams can do, but that's what everybody's going to focus in on, I am sure, because that's there. I guarantee there's going to be at least one graphic that shows how Tua was drafted 5th overall, Herbert was drafted 6th overall, and where are those two quarterbacks now, and should they have picked the other guy, and blah, 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 blah. That's going to be what they're going to be talking about for a great majority of this broadcast, because we'll see if they're creative enough to actually do something else for Sunday Night Football. Hopefully they are, because this is prime time. So let's actually have something else to talk about. That's my hope anyway.
And I think, Louis, we might look at this a little bit differently as I pivot over to Michael here. If Tua had played better last week, like I feel like, there was this rise – sort of from the ashes of the national media announcing his retirement, to having, these 4 tremendous games and then really not playing well. I mean, there's no way around this. I mean, if he makes half of the throws that he usually makes, they win last week. Like they win that game. Like I can't think of another game, Michael, where I pointed to it, certainly not this season, but even going back, where I said, okay, Tua is the reason they lost. Like, is clearly, I mean, there's games he hasn't played well in Tennessee and Buffalo and some others, but like everything else, like it seems like they did well enough last week, and he just missed throws he usually makes. So I mean, that's to me more so than that Tua versus Herbert. This is Tua versus Tua today, because he can be very hard on himself. Mike McDaniel has been trying to correct that, but this is a week you wanted him, I think, to be hard on himself because he was not good.
Yeah, it was interesting because we've seen him play so well in big moments. Of course, he's elite on third down. We've seen him step up in the fourth quarter time after time. But when that game started, it looked like he was just so juiced up for it because where Twitter trolls like to point out when he's missing low and it becomes an arm strength thing. He was missing everything up. He was just so gassed up there, and there was guys running wide open, particularly Jalen Waddle, who he missed seemed like time after time, especially in that first half. But as you mentioned, this should have been a week where Tua was hard on himself and McDaniel gave him a little tough love while still the reassurances of, hey, you're still that dude. Everyone has a bad week. And that was something that I talked about in the postgame show last week is there's no quarterback who's immune from bad games. That doesn't make you a bad quarterback. What makes you a bad quarterback is having bad game after bad game. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how Tua responds because you're right. Last week was on him. If he makes the throws that we've seen him make all year long, that's almost certainly a Dolphins win a week ago. And so now you have a lot of injuries on that Chargers defense. It's already a horrific. If the season ended today, they would be the worst run defense in NFL history in terms of yards per carry, giving up 5.4 per game. So you should be able to have Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert keeping you out of third and long, and you should be able to burn them with Tyreek Hill and so forth. So if you're Tua, this matches up so well for what you do, and this can really erase last week by winning a primetime game against the guy that Mike Tannenbaum says is the better quarterback over you. So he has a big opportunity here, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he responds.
Yeah, and I think we've talked all year, Eric, about how when we think Mike McDaniel is going to do one thing, like the trends suggest, okay, do this. That doesn't happen. I mean, even going back to the second half against Houston, where like not just the trends, but like everything you've ever learned about football says if you get up 30 points on a team and then your starting quarterback and your number 2 quarterback are out, maybe run the ball a little bit and take the air out of the ball. He didn't do that. Like everything is suggesting today that you can run, like exactly like Michael said, you can run all over this team, right? Like that's, I mean, you have 2 healthy backs now, and you should be effective doing that, and that would take the pressure off Tua. And with that being said, it wouldn't stop me at all if Tua throws the first 17 times of this game, right? Like, so I mean, if you're McDaniel, do you play it cute today or do you play it straight?
I don't see a reason to play it cute today. I mean, honestly, anytime that you go back to the last time that they faced a run defense that was, even close to as bad as this one was when they played Cleveland at home, because Cleveland had some real issues stopping the run, and we saw what ended up happening there. That was Jeff Wilson's kind of coming out party. I think this is where you're looking at this Chargers defense. Not only are they bad against the run, but they're bad against the run, and then on top of that, they're injured, at other key positions. So it just feels like there's no need to, especially when you have the talent disparity that you have between the Dolphins offense and the Chargers defense right now. There's no reason to be the smartest guy in the room. Sometimes the best thing to do is just the simplest thing, and I think pounding the rock would be wise for the Dolphins today.
Yeah, I would think so. And like I said, I think he's going to throw the first 17 times in this game, Lewis. So here's the other thing about this. The other reason you cannot lose this game is because you've lost to the Jets. You've lost to the Bengals. If you lose to the Chargers, you may end up in some funky tiebreaker situations later on. Like these teams are clustering together. Like you talked about it last week. Like beating the 49ers would have been nice. It was kind of a litmus test for where they are as a team. It was not a litmus test for the playoffs. And so if you're McDaniel, I hope you got the cute stuff out of the way. Like just, like do what's going to be effective today. Do you think he'll do that?
I think he'll do what's effective. The problem is, I think what he thinks is effective is still the passing game. I don't think he has a whole lot of faith in the run game as it is. So I tend to agree with you, Ethan, is that I think that Tua is going to absolutely go ballistic throwing the football, whether that's for better or worse. That's up to discussion. I personally still feel like there needs to be a balance, that there needs to be some level of run game going on here. But that being said, Tua's line on Prize Picks is 280 yards passing. So I somehow suspect for him to throw the ball, he's going to have to throw the ball a lot to be able to get to that number. And I think that that's exactly what they're planning on doing. This is exactly what they're expecting. This is exactly what they do best. McDaniel knows that's what they do best. So in some essence, what do we consider cute is what I would suggest. Like, what do we consider cute? Do we consider cute to just continue to throw the ball endlessly and rely on Tua's arm? Or is it just saying we don't care what the situation calls for, we're just going to do this because I think it's funny? That's what I would wonder. What's your definition of cute in this case?
Well, I think it's going completely against what the Chargers are struggle against, right? Like, so I'm with you that he's not going to just abandon the passing principles of this team when that has been what's been effective so that he can become a totally different team today. But I do think you have to account for the opponent. I mean, you have two healthy backs now, and that should be something at this point of the season, you need to be able to get to that, because you're going to need to be able to get to it when you're playing in the playoffs, on the road, potentially, where you're going to need to run the ball. So I think it's cute to me if we see like one of these, like, I don't know, 5-to-1 pass to run ratios. Like that's being overly cute today in this situation. I'm not saying you go totally the other direction, but I do think there needs to be a little bit more balance. Let's pivot to the other side, and then we'll get to more of the Tua Herbert debate specifically. Okay. I was looking at Keenan Allen today, and Michael X has really been hot and cold this season. Like, he has not played like an elite number one corner, whether it's the injuries or not. The passer rating against him, the number of completions against him is not something we're accustomed to seeing. There's been so much whining, okay, from some corners of national media, particularly ESPN and others, about the weapons Herbert has not had. Keenan Allen, though, does present a threat. He's really performed well against the Dolphins in the past. What do they do to take him out of it? I mean, you just line up X against him and just hope for the best.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Chargers have two incredibly talented receivers in Mike Williams as well as Keenan Allen, but both are as fragile as it gets. And the Dolphins do such a good job of taking away the run. We've seen that time and time again, especially in recent weeks. And Austin Eckler, while he's always a threat catching the ball, he has not run the ball very well. He's not breaking tackles at all. He has just, I saw it earlier, I believe it's like a handful of 10-yard runs on the year. So they are going to air it out. And it stands to reason that the Dolphins should be able to score on this Chargers defense, which makes them need to air it out more. So you're going to need to hope a guy like Jerome Baker can keep Austin Eckler in check throwing the ball. And then you need X to try and shut down Keenan Allen on that side of the ball. With the depth that the Dolphins currently do not have in the secondary, you're going to need some extra help on that end. And so it remains to be seen what Mike Williams will be. But if X can be good X today and take away Keenan Allen, because he's, like you mentioned, killed the Dolphins in the past, and he's had a couple explosive games in recent weeks, you can't let him be the guy to beat you. And you know what Justin Herbert's arm can produce. You don't want to let him get behind you and beat you deep.
This comes from Cap for Life, who's always a watcher of the show here. We appreciate it. Tua already beat Herbert head-to-head, Lewis. Go get the AFC East to win a statement game in December when it counts in the AFC first seed hunt. I'll ask this, Eric, on this. When we look at Herbert, okay, there is a clear dichotomy here in terms of what he does for the first three quarters and what he does for the fourth. And so I feel like narratives are going to be written today in a lot of ways, because I do feel like if the Dolphins are down going into the fourth, Dolphin fans will feel reasonably comfortable because of what Tua has done in the past, even though obviously last week was a bit of an anomaly, and what Herbert has done in the past also. So in light of that, okay, let's look at the Tua Herbert matchup in totality here. What constitutes success for each today?
For Herbert, just because of the way that the offense is working, they're not going to be able to run the ball very well. It's almost funny because you would think that it's going to be the opposite way, considering the two quarterbacks and the narratives around them. But I look for Herbert to have a lot of success in the short, quick passing game. Their offensive line is beat up. They're not going to really be able to run the ball too well. At least I'm not expecting that to be the case. So he's going to have to kind of keep them on schedule with the short passes, keep them ahead of the sticks, long drives. Whereas with Miami, if it's going to be Tua, it's going to be going downfield. Derwin James is out. The Chargers have a really banged up secondary. The Chargers also run the most man coverage in the league. Shout out to Hussam for showing that stat out. So when it comes down to it, you have weapons like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and they're going to be running man. You have to take advantage of that, and typically you can take advantage of it down the field for big plays. So for Tua, I look for him to stack up big plays. For Herbert, it's just about keeping his offense, on schedule right now.
Isn't that a thing, Lewis? Everybody this whole offseason talked about how Tua couldn't throw the ball down the field, and Herbert was the greatest deep thrower since Marino. And yet Tua's yards per attempt, even after last week, are still a full 2.5 yards better than Herbert's this year. I mean, that's not an insignificant number. I mean, essentially he's basically 50% higher on yards per attempt. Do you think Herbert will test the Dolphin defense deep today?
I think he'll test as much as he's able to test. I also I did a second prop, and I'm testing that Xavier Howard's going to pick off Justin Herbert today. So I'm hoping that he tries to test them at least a little bit. Because here's the reality, is that Justin Herbert's skill set, his talent level per se, like what he does best, the fact that he has such a powerful arm, and we can't deny that for a second, that's what makes everybody feel like, oh yeah, he's definitely one of the best deep throwers. But whatever Brandon Staley is doing over there in Los Angeles, that's basically negated the one thing that he does really good, because so far he's basically become a dink and dunk quarterback, which I don't think is particularly conducive to what just Herbert does best. Meanwhile, Tua, he was the guy who everybody said, yeah, his arm strength isn't great and you need a strong arm to be able to go deep all the time. Of course, we all know that that's not true because we're watching it happen in real time. What deep balls do not have to mean hitting him in stride with a guy running 5 yards ahead of everybody else. Sometimes it's just a matter of you scheme a guy open, you're accurate, and then when it gets there, it gets there. Tua can do it really well because he knows where the ball needs to go. He knows how to time it, because all that is just as important as having the arm to actually get it there. Tua doesn't have a less than average arm. He has an average NFL arm, which is still pretty strong, all things considered. Like, understand that he doesn't have to be able to throw it from end zone to end zone in order to be considered a strong arm. It's that whole narrative, I think we can put it to bed. As far as his ability to actually throw the deep ball, there's no question about it. As for Herbert, I think he'll try to kind of put himself back in that conversation to say, oh yeah, I'm still the guy, watch this. And quite frankly, I'm hoping he does that, because that's when Herbert tends to make mistakes, because gunslingers like him, where he can do that sort of thing, where he has so much faith in his arm that he thinks he can get it into any window he wants, that's when mistakes start to happen. And again, fingers crossed, he does something stupid.
Well, and we're gonna, before we go around to the prize picks, we're going to do some quick picks here with everybody, and I'm just going to say up, down as we go forward. I do think that's one of the interesting things to watch today, is how much Tua and Herbert have been affected by the narrative surrounding both of them. Because it is clear that Tua listens and watches everything. He talks about how it's just his small circle, but no, he knows, okay? And it affected him, to the point, again, that he didn't know if he sucked, okay, last year. And that wasn't just because of his head coach. It was also because of what was coming from the national media, primarily. I wonder how much it's affected Herbert, too, because clearly Tua has passed Herbert this year in a lot of different ways. And I wonder if he will be, as Lewis is talking about, kind of sloppily, overly aggressive to sort of try to make a point. You talk about it, Michael. Last week, Tua certainly allowed the emotions to get the better of him in San Francisco. So it's certainly possible that it could for both of them. All right, before we get to our picks, we'll get to our prize picks here. So let's go over under, but this first one is real easy, okay? Unless he doesn't take the field. Prize Picks is basically giving you a box today. It's the Justin Herbert half a passing yard. Okay, you can only use it once. I believe you can only use it up to $25. I think
up to $20. So that's the rule. So technically speaking, you could use it more than once, I believe, but it's only up to $20.
Up to $20. Okay, so I've already played it in a 3-pick. Okay, but Justin Herbert is basically a free square. Okay, so this gets you, if you do a 3-pick, it gets you 1/3 of the way there, or 4-pick 1/4 of the way. So play that, okay? Because we're assuming that will actually happen. His number in real time here is 288.5 yards. So we don't have to play that. You're going to play the half a yard. I'll just ask you, we'll go around again. We're going to do these rapid fire here. Lewis, Justin Herbert, 288.5.
I think he'll go over. Again, this defense, I feel like the Miami Dolphins defense, the secondary, like Herbert's going to take his shots and they're going to work. He's going to get some yards. The only real question is how many yards is enough yards. I think that the Dolphins will still win this game, if that's what you're going to ask me in a minute, but we'll get into that moment. I think
we'll get to that in a minute. So, okay, you're going over. All right, go. All right, Michael, let's go to Tua, 285.5.
I wish I could have gotten Lewis's one. This one tears me a bit because I think they are going to have to run the ball, but I'm also going over because I don't believe in that Chargers secondary. I think Tyreek's going to eat. I think those Waddle is going to break a big one or two. Give me the over on Tua as well.
All right, this one's a little bit harder. Again, everybody use the code 5 FIVE when you sign up. Which of these two backs is more likely to go over their number, Eric? By the way, they got to get them out of this. I'm going to tell Jordan Gold. They got to get them out of the San Francisco uniforms here. They're both still. That's why I miss them every week. Jeff Wilson at 40.5 rushing yards. Raheem Mostert at 47.5. Who is the more comfortable overplay?
I mean, it's definitely Jeff Wilson. I don't even know why Raheem is pegged to has a higher yardage total. Jeff Wilson gets more work. I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Dolphin sample size.
Yeah, probably so. All right, let's go to you, Lewis. Austin Eckler, 46.5 rush yards.
I'm going under. McCaffrey burned me last week, but I think the whole team was kind of suffering from it was an extremely tough physical football team. But if you look at Austin Eckler's rush attempts, it's at actually 12. So that would mean that he would have to average, I can't do the exact math on it, but at least over 3 yards a carry in order to actually reach that. So Eckler's main pull is in the receiving game. Because if you notice his receiving yards and you combine it with the rush yards, it's actually up over 90. So that means they're looking at him as more of a receiving threat than an actual running back. So I'm definitely going to safely pick the under, knowing how the Dolphins are usually pretty darn tough on running backs.
All right, I'm going to give let me give you this one, Michael. This is the either or play every week. I used to play them both, but now I play either or. Tyreek Hill at 95.5 receiving yards. Jalen Waddle at 67.5. You mentioned it last week. Tua missed Waddle 4 times. Like he could. I got burned on the Waddle prop even before he went out because Tua kept missing him. But this is a 28-yard difference between the two of them. Is that enough of a cushion to take Waddle instead of Hill?
Honestly, I'd take both over, but the one that I feel really good about is Tyreek. You don't have Derwin James who can help there. Bryce Callahan likely to miss the game as well. I think Tyreek's going to have a similar game to what Justin Jefferson did to Detroit earlier today. I think he's going to catch a couple deep balls. He can take those underneath ones. I think this is going to be a vintage Tyreek Hill game. I think you could put this at 119.5 and I'll take the over. I think Tyreek's going to
suggest that. Okay. Don't suggest that because early in the season they were in the 60s, Michael. This has crept up every week to the point I won't play it, but I understand what you're saying there. All right, Eric, Keenan Allen at 67.5. Only Charger receiver on the board. Actually, Eckler's not on here for receiving yards. You're correct, Lewis. So he is on for rushing and receiving combined. He's not on for receiving only. What do you think, Eric?
I guess I'm looking at over on 67.5. Although knowing this Chargers offense, I could see 10 catches for 65 yards for him today.
You're right. At 6.5 yards a catch. That's a Herbert number for sure. Just so everybody knows, the other receiving yard guys on the board: Jeff Wilson at 11.5 receiving yards. Interesting. I don't know if I'd play it. Mike Gesicki, I did play though. And I know you hate it. I know you hate it, but it's 19.5 yards. I mean, The fruit is hanging so low, I can't resist it. But
it's sour fruit, Ethan. It's sour fruit.
It may be. All right, here's some reception ones. I'm just going to announce these.
Because can I just mention what Cap for Life is asking?
Yes.
Is there a prop for Trent? Is there a prop bet for Trent Sherfield? Last I checked, the answer is no.
I think they're on to us. I think that they do notice some of these props that we hammer, and that one has disappeared. There is no that they did not put that on there. There's Gesicki on as the third guy there, but not him.
There's no Trent Sherfield. They've learned their lesson.
The receptions here, Austin Eckler. I'll just do these myself. 5.5 receptions. I'm going over. I do think dump offs with Herbert. Tyreek Hill, 6.5 receptions. I will go over on that one. In fact, I feel more comfortable with that than the yardage today for some reason. Waddle, 4.5 receptions. He's going to keep throwing to him. I would go over on that one. I'm not going to mention Gesicki at 2 receptions because Lewis is going to get mad at me.
I already picked the under, so sorry.
I know you are. Let's see if any. The only guy on here for receiving touchdowns is Tyreek Hill. 0.5. We playing that over? Those are tough.
I don't generally do touchdowns because it's so hit and miss. Because even if the Dolphins do really good, it doesn't guarantee he's going to throw to one specific person. That's why I don't generally play those.
All right, and who would you be more likely to play here? We'll just do these two for sacks. Dolphins defense or Chargers defense at 2?
Dolphins defense, unquestionably. Unquestionably, Dolphins defense.
Is Teron Armstead playing?
We don't know yet. That's the thing. That's the problem with doing these pregame shows so early. If we find out Armstead's not playing, I'm hammering that. I'm just seriously that is the first. I'm waiting on another prop here specifically to get that one in because they won't raise it. I don't think they'll. You know what? Don't watch this. Anybody at PrizePicks, don't watch this when you're setting the props because I don't think that they will. I don't think that's enough to move the needle where they'll go over to that other category and change it. All right, let's get to the picks. We do appreciate our sponsors. Also, do want to mention our gambling sponsor, Better Edge. Use the code 5RSN. There's the number 5RSN. This is peer-to-peer legal sports betting. Okay, it's different from PrizePicks. You're actually betting games here, but you're finding others to bet against on the product itself. So you're not betting against the book, which is why it's legal, and you can find the line that you want. So go to betteredge.com, use the code 5RSN. PrizePicks, use the code 5. All right, let's get to it today. No pun intended. Eric, I'll let you give your pick first. I'm going to let Lewis close on this. What do you think?
Yeah, so give me Miami 34, Chargers 24. I think the Dolphins offense gets right.
Michael?
Yeah, give me I think this is going to be a huge day for the Dolphin offense. And I'm not going to give Jason Sanders anything. So give me 35 for the Dolphins, 27 Chargers.
Hold on a second. That reminds me. Hold on. Is he on the board today? Do they not have field goals on the board today? Am I missing this?
No, Justin Tucker was there earlier, but my battery's about to die. So quick, give me my number.
Yeah, I got it. All right, pick. Go to it. What do you got?
Dolphins 34, Chargers 31.
That's about where I am. I think this game. I would play. By the way, I would play overs today. Play overs if you're betting the game. I don't know what the number is. It's in the 50s. I think it's 54 or something like that. Play that over. I like both teams. In the 30s or close to it today, but I like a Miami victory today as well. I will tell you this. The San Francisco game you can excuse. Again, Tua didn't play well. A lot of odd circumstances there. Yes, they should have beat Purdy. He looks pretty good right now with a week of preparation. But this game, if you're a serious contender in the AFC, you need to win this game. Like you win. This is a team. You need to put this team away. Okay, the Chargers, we know the Chargers for the last 20 years have found a way to blow games in the fourth quarter. They now have another quarterback just like Phillip Rivers, who is expert at that. All right, so get the game to the fourth. Let your guy win it. I think that's the way that this plays out today. So I wouldn't give a lot of points, but we play it out. Lewis is gone. Use the code 5, FIBE, at PrizePicks. Check out Pulse of Fins Nation. Also, a great episode with Hussam is up there. I'm going to post that back up on Twitter. Have a good day, everybody.
Later.